Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ramon Lopez. I'm a principal solutions architect specializing in QuickSight, and I'm based out of Los Angeles and been with AWS for 2 years. Today, I'm here to talk to you about data in your QuickSight account. So, quick agenda for the session today. First, we're going to talk about QuickSight high level. What is QuickSight? Make sure everyone's on the same page. Next, we're going to review a use case. And today, we're going to talk about using QuickSight in your data mesh. Next, we're going to look at the features within QuickSight that we take advantage that make all this happen. We'll look at a demo of a few roles, a few personas, leveraging this integration with your data in your data mesh. So let's get things started. What is Amazon QuickSight? Amazon QuickSight is a unified BI service at hyperscale, and our goal in life is to bring insights to everyone in the organization. And how do we do that? So these four categories kind of really summarize our core advantages and what make us the tool to bring insights to everyone in the organization. First of all, you're unifying all of your BI needs in one solution. So what do I refer to there? We're talking about interactive dashboards, slicing and dicing your data. We're talking about taking those interactive dashboards that are rich and beautiful and insightful and putting them inside of applications. So this is what we've referred to as embedding your dashboards. In addition to interactive dashboards, embedding those dashboards, we have what we call paginate reporting, which is essentially pixel perfect reporting. So you're able to, in the same platform with the same skills, design and distribute PDFs, Excel, and CSVs of your data. And lastly, in the platform, you're going to find natural language querying and BI capabilities throughout that are going to kind of unify everything and give you all the features that you need to do business intelligence in the org. Next, we're going to have consistent high performance with auto-scaling. QuickSight was born on the cloud and all of its components were built to scale to the volume of users, the volume of data that the modern organization today requires. This eliminates a lot of the burden of having to maintain hardware, having to maintain licensing in order to scale, in order to give insights to those additional 10, 100, or 1,000 users in the organization or in your customer base that need those insights. Next, we're going to find that QuickSight is full of AI capabilities. So we're talking simple capabilities that are easy to use, like forecasting, contribution analysis, why type of questions, anomaly detection, and more advanced AI-powered features like natural language querying and some new generative AI capabilities that we coin generative BI that let you create, do storytelling powered by LLMs and get executive summaries of your dashboards. A lot of really new, powerful features leveraging generative AI, making the experience for authors and for readers enhanced. And lastly, the fourth pillar here is about lower cost for what you consume. Cost optimization with QuickSight, you pay by user, you pay by usage, and we've done some studies and we've found that it can be up to 70% lower cost over 3 years compared to other modern BI tools. So all these great things, combines together. Vision is to make QuickSight the preferred choice for delivering insights in the organization, and not just to the analysts, not just the business users, but we want insights to be available to everybody. And we do this with a strong foundation, a foundation based in a modern architecture that can auto scale, that leverages AWS cloud economics, and that's easy to manage, easy to govern, easy to administer within the organization. In this foundation, we're going to have all the different features that we mentioned about earlier: dashboarding, paginated reports, natural language querying, embedded analytics. And as a cover to all of this, we're going to have Amazon Q and QuickSight Q powered with generative BI features that optimize the experience of business users, business analysts, and all in the organization. So all these things combined help us achieve our goals of bringing insights to everybody. So that's who we are in QuickSight. Now we're going to take a little deep dive into the use case that we're looking at. First, we're going to talk about kind of this use case. We're going to talk about the foundation for data strategy being AWS. A lot of what we're building here is leveraging AWS components to create to create and execute your data strategy, whether you're implementing a data lake or you're implementing a data mesh. You're going to find that in AWS, you're going to find comprehensive features, services that are custom purpose built for all the different needs, whether it's databases, whether it's ETL tools, whether it's governance services. We're going to find all sorts of services that empower different users to do what they need to do. We're going to find that these services are integrated throughout, and with this, we'll highlight our focus on zero ETL. So our goal is to simplify the process of ETL, making sure that data in your operational databases is ready for analytics immediately. In addition to zero ETL, all our tools will have integrations amongst each other, leveraging things like Glue and other services that tie everything together. And lastly, being able to govern all this data end to end with a seamless identity throughout is critical. And these three components are the foundation, again, for that data strategy built on AWS. And for this use case that I'm going to talk about today, we're going to leverage this foundation in AWS, and we're going to be talking about what can be done with a data mesh. So the data mesh it's a very hot topic in the industry today, and I'm not going to get into the definition of what is a data mesh. I'm not going to get into different interpretations of a data mesh, but I'm going to describe a simple scenario, a simple deployment of that our customers are doing today that is data mesh like. So what is at a high level the data mesh? It's some call it the evolution of the data lake in the enterprise, and at the foundation of it, it's about treating data as enterprise-wide products. It's about decentralizing the access to the data and the permissions and having it be domain oriented. So in this little example, this high level example here, we have sales as one domain, marketing as another domain, and finance as a third domain. They each have their own data lakes. They each have their own services that let the individual analysts and engineers within those groups do what they need to do and publish data as a product back to the organization. When this data mesh, we're also going to find that there's going to be federated governance and access across those data sources. And lastly, it's about self-service. It's about the sales team being empowered to find the data that they need and leverage it in their own analysis in a secure manner with trust, knowing that the producer, the people who are making the data for them, maybe they're taking data from marketing, they're taking data from finance, knowing that they can trust that data because it's being treated as a product in the enterprise. So that's at a very high level, the concept of data mesh. And we're going to see a very simple example for today's demo of how this can be deployed at AWS. So I'm going to walk through these 6 different steps here that map out to the diagram and help you understand kind of what's happening and how we're able to deploy this simple data mesh, in particular integrating with QuickSight. So first of all, and my focus here being the QuickSight application and the QuickSight experience for analyzing that data that's provisioned by the data mesh. The product in question, the data product in question that we're going to be able to access through the data mesh here is going to be access to some data, so access to some tables that are sitting maybe in Redshift, that are sitting maybe in Athena, in Glue and Athena, or maybe in S3. So in terms of this flow that we're going to talk through here, so first we see that in step number 1, we're going to be leveraging Identity Center. Identity Center is going to streamline and synthesize our access to all of the different AWS services. Identity Center is also able to integrate with your IDP of choice. So maybe you use Active Directory or OneLogin or another IDP, and you're managing all of your permissions via groups through the IDP. This allows you to integrate directly with QuickSight and leverage those groups, leverage those users, leverage single sign-on from your identity provider, not having to change any permissions or access rules. So that's step number 1 and a critical step. Step number 2 is there's going to be an account where QuickSight resides. That's going to be your centralized data catalog. It's going to be your data governance account. In that account, there's also some type of custom application. So I'm keeping things very generic here. So this application could be maybe Data Zone. It could be Data at all. It could be a custom built solution or third-party tool that is provisioning and managing the permissioning of assets in between different accounts. It's managing the publishing and the subscribing of the data in your data mesh. So that's kind of like the area number 2 in this diagram. And then we're going to talk about some basic concepts in your data mesh. So you have a producer account and you have a consumer account. That producer account can be, for example, the marketing team. The consumer account, number 4, there could be maybe the sales team. And these are going to be different domains, different departments in the organization. Each one of them has their own set of tools that they're able to use to access, work with, prepare their data, and also publish their data back to the catalog and to the data mesh. Step number 5. Now this is where you have data analyst teams. They could be part of the producer account. They can be part of the consumer account. They're all going to be accessing QuickSight. And in QuickSight, they're going to find that they have access to all the data sources that they subscribe to. And we'll see how they're able to access that data in a very secure and restricted fashion. And lastly, those same users are able to generate dashboards, for example, out of this data that they've provisioned through the data mesh in a very secure fashion. They can take these dashboards and share them throughout the organizations for those that need the data in the organization. So this is where we can go from accessing data that was provisioned through the data mesh all the way through to sharing those dashboards through the enterprise. Now we're going to talk about how are we able to make this happen with the features within QuickSight. So first, I mentioned Identity Center. In QuickSight, we have a variety of authentication methods. To make this happen, we're going to be using IAM Identity Center. As an IDP in my example, I'm going to be using Identity Center as my IDP, and I'll show you where I create my users and where I create my groups to leverage those users and groups directly in QuickSight. Identity Center integration is key to streamline identities across different AWS services. So I will be the same user that is accessing QuickSight as well as other services like Glue or SageMaker or even Data Zone and others. The next feature that we're going to be leveraging is restricted folders and subfolders. So one caveat here is that as of the recording of this video, the subfolders features is currently on preview. The GA for it is scheduled for July 31st, 2024. So what are this restricted folders and subfolders? What do they provide? So it's a type of folder. It's a way to organize and manage permissions to assets, but it's unique in the sense that it's very secure. It ensures that assets are going to remain inside of that shared folder. What does that mean? Assets created from assets within the restricted folder must also stay within the confines of that restricted folder. Assets located in restricted folders cannot be moved or shared outside of the root folder. Restricted folders also can only be created with the QuickSight Create Folder API operation. In addition, all the permissions are also configured through the API. In this example here, I'm assuming a few things that are going to be done programmatically by the governance, by the data mesh application to manage these folders and manage these permissions to these folders. We're going to find that in these folders, in this example that we're looking at here, we have like a marketing department as our team. You're going to notice how there's a mesh admin. The mesh admin actually doesn't have access to any of the data contained in these folders. They don't have access to the folders themselves. They don't have permissions to any of these assets. We have a data analyst who's a contributor in this folder. That means that they're able to create assets. They're able to publish assets within the same folder, and they're able to just build with the data sources, build data sets, build analysis, build dashboards. These are the people that are building within the environment. Then we also have dashboard consumers. You're going to notice that the data assets folder is going to inherit the permissions from the root folder, so the data analysts are contributors there. The viewers do not have permissions to this data assets folder. The viewers only have permissions to the other subfolder, the dashboard subfolder. So this is where those dashboards are going to live, and this is where those dashboards will be made available to everyone in that viewer group that has been added there. So this is how we leverage the subfolders in this very simple example of kind of a marketing team or a specific domain, and where they're going to store all the data sources in one place and all the dashboards in another place to have different permissions for each. Now we're going to leverage the data source and folder, which is the ability of creating data sources inside of a folder, in this case, a restricted folder. This can be done programmatically via the API, which is what I'm going to show here, or it can also be done through the UI with the Add New button, where a contributor can add a subfolder or a data source directly to the UI. Next, we're going to talk about, I'm going to quickly highlight the fact that there's specific permissions in restricted folders that we're going to be leveraging here. I won't get into the details of each one of these line items due to time, but it's important to understand the difference between the two permission sets, contributors and viewers in restricted folders, what each of them can and cannot do. Also, please note that the owner role as of today is not supported for restricted shared folders. Now there's going to be some automation happening. So the first step of automation that is critical for all of this happening is when a new domain or a new team or new department, or more specifically a new restricted folder is created in QuickSight. And this is done through the APIs. So here we have a sample command. We're leveraging the create folder API endpoint with specific parameters and passing the parameters in the JSON file. And then we see the parameters in the JSON itself. So it's a folder type equal to restricted. We give it a name, and here we define the permissions on that folder. In this case, in this example code here, we have one principal group, the group of users coming from Identity Center, and I'm going to give them contributor permissions. It's the set of permissions that you see here define the contributor permissions. So they're able to create data sets, create analysis, and create dashboards in that restricted folder. In addition to creating the folder in a programmatic fashion, we also have the need to create, or the need and the desire to create data sources programmatically. So this is going to happen once the consumer or the subscriber to the data gets access to the data. So let's say I go into my data catalog, I find the table that I'm looking for, I request to subscribe to it. Now the producer is going to get that request on their end. They're going to say, okay, yeah, of course, Ramon is totally able to use this data with his marketing team. Happy to share it with him. Now I log back in and I'm going to see a data source created in my folder. How is that happening? With these API calls. Here we have an example of creating one with Athena. In this case with Athena, we give it a name. We decide what folder we're going to put that data source in. And then we are going to define a role that's going to include the policies, the permissions that data source is able to connect to that are defined by the data mesh, that are defined based on that data sharing that's been done there. Next, the other data source that we see here is a little bit differently. Instead of connecting to Athena, in this case, we're connecting directly to S3. So again, we give it a name. The type is going to be S3. We specify the folder where it's being placed. We have a ARN. The ARN is going to define the permissions for that role, for that data source in order to access the S3 bucket that it needs to query. And lastly, we have the manifest location, which includes the details as to the tables that it's querying within S3. These are all standard parameters in our S3 connectivity, and as well as Athena. We're just defining them via code and creating them programmatically. So what happened before this point in time in the demo that I'm going to show you? So the first step is that there's a data mesh in place. It could be a custom data mesh, it can be data zone, data.all, it can be a third-party application, but that data mesh is in place and configured with the AWS services that are required. As part of that data mesh, there's going to be the automation and the management of the folders, i.e. the domains, and those permissions in QuickSight, leveraging the API calls that I showed a few minutes ago. So in this example, all the folders have been created and the permissions have been put in place already. I have a consumer, a sales team that has requested access to some pricing data that came from the finance team. And then that producer, the finance team, has approved access to the data, and the data mesh has provisioned this data source automatically. And then I'm going to jump into the demo, and we're going to see how, as an author, as a person that is in that team building, is able to leverage that data source provisioned by the data mesh, and then we can see how they can publish it with dashboard quickly. So we're here now. We're in in QuickSight, in the QuickSight application, I'm going to take a quick step back. I want to take a look at how we got here. So first we're looking at the analyst with the data source provisioned by the data mesh, and then we can take that data source and we can build with it. I'm going to log in through my Identity Center, through my AWS portal. In here, I'm going to see access to the applications that I have access to, one of them being QuickSight. I do also want to show how I'm leveraging Identity Center as my identity provider. In Identity Center, I have my users created in here, and I'm going to have my users assigned to groups. Groups is what I'm going to be using to manage the permissions in QuickSight. And here we are in QuickSight. So I'm going to go in my shared folders. I'm going to find here this My Teams folder. I know it's a restricted folder because it has a lock on it. I can look at the permissions of it, and I can see that this folder is shared with the author group coming from Identity Center, and that I am a contributor in that group. I am a member of that author group. That's why I can see this folder. I'm going to go in that folder and I'm going to see some subfolders in it. I have a subfolder for data sources. That's where the data mesh is going to be putting my data sources. I have a subfolder for dashboards. I'll go into my data sources and I'll see here a few things. I'll see in particular at the bottom 3 different data sources. I have a Redshift run as role. If I take a look at the details of it, we'll see that it's connecting to Redshift, to my specific cluster here, and it's using a role as well as a username and password to access that Redshift. I also have access via the data mesh to Athena with custom permissions. So here we see in a similar fashion a connection to Athena with a specific role. And lastly, we have here S3 with a custom role. So if I go ahead and I take a look at this, again, we'll see here that it's using a custom role and using that manifest that I showed the code for earlier. Now we're going to leverage, I can use any one of these. I can leverage this data source to create a data set. So I click it, I click on Create Data Set. I'm going to edit this data set for a quick second. So I want to show you kind of what's happening. So I'm connecting, in this case, to S3 with that custom role. I see my schema. I see my data, my preview of my data. Great. This is what I want to do. I'm going to give this data set a name, demo data set, and I'm going to save, publish, and visualize. So when I go ahead and I click on the Save button, it's going to ask me to put this data set in a specific folder. Great. So I'm going to put this in my data sources folder because that's where I put all my raw assets. So I go ahead and add it to my data sources folder, and it'll take me to an analysis. Great. We're going to here in a few clicks, leveraging some of the Gen BI capabilities, we're going to create a quick dashboard. So first we're going to just look at, I want to see my total sales. Notice how I can just type in natural language text, what I'm looking for, the visualizations that I want to create. It'll interpret my text that I'm asking for, and it'll let me add that to the analysis. I'm going to create 2 more charts like that. Let's say we want to look at profit by customer. Great. And let's say we do one more. Let's say we do top 5 industries by profit. Great. Oh, my session just timed out. I have to re-authenticate. So let me just go ahead and do that real quick. Apologies for that. So here we are, I'm re-accessing that analysis that I was just working on. I have to switch regions because I'm working in a different region for the purposes of this demo. And then we have here the analysis that I was just building. So kick me out right in that 3rd chart. So we'll do top 3 industries by profit. Great. So here we have this dashboard. Now let's say that I want to publish this dashboard with my audience of readers. We're assuming in this case that the subfolder for dashboards has already been shared with that group of readers. So I go ahead and I click on that publish button. I'm going to select here, I want this to be dash for readers. I'm going to select the folder in which I want to place this dashboard. So I'll go in here, I'll click on dashboard, I'll click add. and I'll publish my dashboard. Great. There's my dashboard. So now what is the experience for that viewer, for that other consumer, or for that other user that has this dashboard shared with them? So I'm going to log in as them now. They're going to be a member of a viewer group. It's user number 3. That's their name. They're accessing through Identity Center as well. I'm going to click on the application QuickSight, and here we arrive at QuickSight. If I look at the user in the top right, we'll see here that it's user 3. It's a different user. I'm going to access my shared folders. So I have access to that Teams folder, the same folder that the other user was working on a few minutes ago. But you're going to notice that I don't see the data sources. I don't see the test folder. I only see the dashboards folder. I go in it and I'm going to see the dashboards that have been shared in that folder. Note that the permissions are being inherited from the folder itself, from that dashboard folder. So any dashboards added to this folder will be automatically shared with the group defined at the folder level. I go ahead and I open up my dashboard, and here I am, as expected. I have my dashboard with all the features that I want for my consumers to use. So that right there kind of concludes the quick demo. I'm showing kind of end to end from an author leveraging some data sources created by the data mesh, building out some dashboards and sharing it with a totally different group of users, all of it leveraging an integration with your IDP of choice, managing everything with Active Directory or IDP groups.